Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs, and today we will be looking at my custom Mezco Cyberpunk cop, or at least that's sort of what he started out to be. He was a cop, and I just realized I didn't put the leather jacket in the video. We're just going to lay that right there for now, and we'll look at that a little bit later. He started out as a cop. Our idea and concept for him was that he wasn't satisfied basically with how law enforcement was able to keep order in the city, and so he has turned to vigilantism. Is that a word? Vigilantism? He's turned to becoming a vigilante in order to enforce his style of justice and see that things are kept in order, sort of going on the idea that their police system is corrupt, and he is this new source of justice in order to keep order and protect the civilians of, I think what we called the city was New Tokyo, and I might be wrong about that. I'd have to look back to some of my older posts. But this guy is loaded out, and sort of the reason why we wanted to create him was me and the customer that I've been making these Cyberpunk customs with, we're sort of looking at our cast and lineup of characters, and what we realized is we had a lot of characters who sort of sat on this scale of, good, bad, neutral, chaotic, evil, neutral, good, all those types of things. But we didn't have like a true good character in terms of at least what we can describe as true good within this universe. We had a lot of good guys who sort of fell away or were on the run or were seeking vengeance. But we're like, who's someone we just want to give them like truly, good character going after the bad guys for the sake of justice. And so we came up with this idea of a cop who is trying to do more. And so with that, we wanted to do a lot of really sleek cyber upgrades. If you saw my video for the Psycho, we were definitely going with a lot more of an industrial look with that. This guy, our idea was just a clean powerhouse of a character, and I think we really achieved that look. And so as we dive into him, obviously we always go through the accessories first, so I'm going to pop off his head, put the figure body to the side, and let's look into what he's got in store for us. So we're going to start off with weapons, and he has a lot of them. We're going to start with his grenade launcher. We're going to start on this side and just sort of move across. So we have his grenade launcher here. This is from the NECA Ultimate Terminator from, I believe, Terminator 2. And something fun that I've been trying to do was sort of mix classic weapons with a little bit of future paint and sort of modernize them in that way. And so as you can see here, I have red highlights throughout the weapon, just sort of in these little bolt holes and sort of this line running across. And just to give it a little bit of a glow, but we also have a very classic look with the wood stock. And everything's been repainted. I did a glossy black for the base and then dry brushed with a couple different wood tones over that. And then likewise, this whole barrel was also painted a matte black and then dry brushed with silver to also give it this sort of like nice vintage worn look. But we have the contrast of all this sort of like red glow running through the gun too, or through the, I guess, grenade launcher really. So that was really exciting to paint, and I like how it turned out. I'm very, very pleased with its overall look. So setting that aside, we now have his shotgun. This is from the Blade figure. We didn't do much besides give it a new paint job. We really added some wear and tear to it, really brought out the silver and also some of the blacks within the grips and also within sort of like this pump action. So this was really just more about bringing out the detail within Mezco's sculpt and adding some, well-deserved wear to it. This guy's, he's a soldier, he's a cop, he's a vigilante. This stuff gets worn down. So putting that off to the side, he also has a kukri knife. This can be a very tactical blade, but is also a blade used by a lot of villagers out in Southeast Asia. So you're looking at Vietnam, Thailand. This is a very common blade, and it also does have military applications as well. And so this is what we gave to him. I thought it was a little bit more of a unique knife and something that would stand out because I feel like so much of this character really stands out. And so I really liked this choice of blade for him over something just sort of tactical and kind of vanilla in a lot of ways. So we have this blade here, and I'll show you where that stores. He also has weapon storage for both of his handguns. So first we have this revolver. This is from the Netflix Punisher figure. And, like I was saying, adding sort of like a futuristic look with also something very classic. We have very classic wooden grip, but then, or maybe some kind of leather, I don't know, probably wood though. But then we also have these red highlights at the top and then also on the sides. And I know it doesn't look as bright on camera, I can just tell by the viewfinder. However, in person it has a very almost Blade Runner vibe where there's still very real world, but also a little bit futuristic, and so just adding that red glow in there to really bring that across. The next thing we have is his more normal handgun. This was a cast that I got from Resin Armory. I've mentioned him more than once on this channel. He's great. Check him out. But I dry brushed it with a little bit of black gray to add some wear and tear, and then we also put some red glow in the grip, as well as highlighted the slide lock, as well as the ejector port in chrome. So very happy with that. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think with the black gray, it has some nice weathering to it. Yeah, it looks like it's been dropped and maybe kicked around a lot. It's seen a lot of use, so that's very nice. His last weapon that he has is his assault rifle. This is really the only automatic weapon he has in his loadout. And this, we've talked about these 3D printed guns before. The last time I talked about it was with the sniper rifle in Arkham Knight. This is the assault rifle version, also from Black Ops Toys. And it also does have interchangeable parts as well. There was a couple that I had to fuse down. I fused down the stock, and I fused down the sight or the scope. But the barrel is interchangeable, as you can see here. We can, takes a lot of force. Pop that out. I had to add some super glue to make sure everything had some friction. And then we can take our other barrel and slide that in. So you get something a little bit more tactical maybe. Or you can go with the much more futuristic barrel front. I like this one. Maybe it's an integrated compensator or an integrated suppressor, who knows, but you get a much more standard barrel right there. And then also we currently have the extended mag in, so we can wiggle that out and then take our standard mag and put that in as well. So you get some changes and some choices in configuration, which is really cool. This whole thing was sprayed matte black. Oh, also there is a flashlight attachment that we also froze. Can't forget that. You have your little flashlight or maybe a laser. Sprayed it all matte black, and then we dry brushed with black gray, dry brushed with the chrome silver, and then we added our gloss red highlights into the gun. We're definitely working with a very black-red motif, and I know that in the past we've used that for bad guys, but in our case, it really just turned out to be a really sleek look. Metallic blue does not look nearly as cool as metallic red. So despite some of our black and red being for villains, this guy is definitely good. And I think we were also to get a very sort of noble silhouette, if that makes sense, out of this guy. I think his poses and his design definitely make him look like a hero. Coming to the hands now. These are all blade hands. So standard. What we've done is we painted them matte black, dry brushed black gray over most of the fingers and the gloves, but then we have gloss black in the armor plating of the arms. So these little tab pieces here are done in a gloss black. It's the same for all the other hands, and all the other hands come with blade figures, so I'm not going to run over them, but they're all here, and the paint job is all the same for them. So we're going to just sort of slide those, scoot those over to the side. Now we're going to come to the heads. This is our first head. And this is, I think, our sort of like our vigilante cop head. If you're familiar with the Cyberpunk figures that I've been doing, I like to integrate different designs and personalities into the heads and sort of bring out, not only the character that we were intending to design, but also some alternate designs and maybe some different looks for him. But here is our first head. I'm very happy with how the paint turned out. It turned out really smooth and really clean, which I'm glad for. This was a head cast of a Thor Ragnarok, so Chris Hemsworth, but we shaved down all the hair on top and re-sculpted it into a more slick back look. And I don't know which is coming out first. I don't know if my Archer or this video is coming out first, but I talk about gloss black and sweat. So either you have something to look back to or something to look forward to. But in this case, he's not sweating. So even though his hair is slicked back, I didn't add the gloss into it because I want to give him a very clean, professional look. He's not tired from battle, but he's really fresh and clean and ready to go. Sort of to his backstory too, we have a cybernetic implant here. So we have this line of silver that is running to his eye, and if the camera will focus, there you go, you can see that he has a red eye with a silver pupil, and he also has a lot of scars. He has a lot of scars around his forehead and face, and this eye is actually dead. However, what we have included is a magnetic eye implant to allow to give him sight, and as well as extra little vision and perks. So this is a magnetic piece. It magnets into the forehead, and we've created this really nice eye plate here. It's got a lot of little, camera focus, it's got a lot of little lenses, and we have this nice jade green running through it. And so that's some really fun tech look. And we also have some jade green and some other pieces of this figure as well. So you'll get to see more of that. But that's this head. This is very much our vigilante cop head. He's seen a lot, obviously, in duty. And now he's sort of given himself some cybernetics to allow him to go out and do some extra work. Real quick, back to the hair paint, though. We also added some gray in along the sides of his hair, as well as a little bit in his mustache as well, or maybe his beard, really, to just give off that, you know, he's done his time. He's not young. He doesn't have sort of like this very, I guess, naive understanding of the world. He's seen a lot. He's been through a lot, and you know, these are sort of the choices he's making after experiencing everything he has experienced. I definitely feel like he almost has some Batman vibes in that way, and just sort of the backstory that we're looking at. But I wanted him to enter into sort of this underground world of, you know, dealing justice and also dealing with criminals, not as, you know, sort of like bright-eyed kid, but someone who's really, really seen a lot of the horrible things that go on. Anyways, back to the heads now. We have our Spec Ops head. This is definitely sort of like when he was in the line of duty. He was a soldier before he became a cop. And this is that Spec Ops sort of head that we have. So this is based off of the Scourge Marvel Legends figure head. And obviously we sculpted night vision goggles on here. We've also sculpted this radio, you know, this little comm radio set. We also have an antenna built into the headphones that we have running all the way around. So this was a really fun head to sculpt, and I think I was really able to transform the look. Obviously, he has 3 different lenses to look through, as well as some other, you know, sensory things up here. He also has this laser up there, and I don't know if there, yeah, you can see the red a little bit. It's much brighter in person. I don't know why I feel like the camera's muting the colors, but there is some nice red in there, and it has this really nice glow and sheen to it too. I'm trying to find an angle that you can see it a little bit better, but it's a little bit tough. So an interesting thing was just figuring out how to differentiate all the colors of the head. So we have a black gray that's sort of up front here. Then we have a more matte black on the sides. We have some more black gray running through the headset itself. This little divot on the inside is a matte black. And then the antenna, the wire that runs back from this little camera also runs around the back of his earbud and down his neck. And that is done in a gloss black as well. Also, obviously, his comm set is done in gloss black. We have his little skull paint on the front of his mask. And along the sides is also done in a gloss black, as you can see. And then his little gas vents are done in a black gray with some gloss black divots in there. As you can see, there's some, I don't know if it's coming through. There we go. You can see that there's some gloss black inside the little dents inside like the little vent air filters. So we have a lot of different shades and whatnot coming through, as well as some silver highlights occasionally inside the little bolts along the sides of his visor, goggles, something. So a lot of little paint details inside this head, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it came out very clean and really gives across that professional look. Now we have this other head, and there's a funny story behind this. Me and the customer really didn't know what to do with this. The figure was based off the PX Magneto Mezco body. So he had this white Magneto helmet on, and we were just like, he originally we were going to do like a full face helmet, but the designs really just didn't jive with how the character was coming out. So we're like, what do we do with this? We have this smiling Magneto head. And I ended up asking him if he wanted sort of like a tactical beanie. So we ended up sculpting a beanie. So we removed the whole helmet. And so it really just left his little face and like a little nub for the neck. So sculpted a whole beanie over that. And then there were these tabs in the sides of the face here that helped the helmet stay in. And so we just sort of filled those in, but we left the edges of those tabs exposed so that we would have some sort of like under the face or like under the layer of skin, we would be able to get some cybernetics in there. And then I was like, I sent him some Cyberpunk concept art, and there's this one guy with silver teeth. Like he had replaced his whole mouth and he had this robotic jaw with these metal teeth. And he was like, and so we're just like, we're going to go with metal teeth. So then we have this chrome silver inside the teeth, added some jaw replacement, as you can see there. And then also added, sort of like a nose reinforcement piece, and then we also did these crazy lenses for his eyes, and then also we sculpted some flecks of hair up top, and it just sort of turned into this like crazed out dude. And I feel like this head has the most personality. The other two heads are very stoic and professional and cold. This guy has a little bit of swagger. He's a little bit off his rocker. We actually compared him to Firefly from G.I. Joe. He also reminds me a little bit of Claw from Black Panther. So definitely some interesting vibes. His face just looks like he has an Australian accent. That's the only way I can describe it. And I'm super happy with how it turned out. And this head definitely has some personality to it. And so once again, we make our heads to, represent alternate versions of the character or just other potential that he has. And so this guy turned out really well, and I'm really, really happy with the design. I think it's super unique to anything else I've really done with the Cyberpunk design so far. And so, yeah, just really happy with how it turned out. This guy looks crazy. He's got like this dirty beard too. He's just a crazed out dude. Someone who shouldn't have guns, really, is what we're trying to say here. So the final thing is we do have this leather jacket. This was from the Gambit figure. And so we ended up painting the lining red, obviously to stick with our motif, and then obviously the coat was all brown before, and it's all been painted black. So we have all that done, and we will put the figure into this coat later, closer to the end of the video. We are going to come back now to the main body, and just because we sort of talked about this a lot, we're going to put it on. We got his head on, his crazed head. And by the way, I just love this vest. I don't remember what figure this is from. I think it's from Damn Toys, but I might be wrong. DAM, by the way, not a curse word. That's just the name of their company. But what we did do was, this whole vest is normally all black, and what we ended up doing is actually highlighting the lining in white because it looked too plain, and we needed something to sort of break up between his arms and his undersuit and the vest, and so adding some of this white in there really helped bring out those details. But the big highlight of this is the arms. These are fully sculpted, resculpted arms. I mean, there's no other way to put it besides it was a complete takedown and a complete rebuild of the arms here. And so we have a lot of different parts inside these arms. This is not just like we took the Magneto arms and we just sculpted over it. But what we have to do is we have to pull the arms out of the main body itself, which, by the way, the butterfly joint is not like a butterfly joint in terms of, like a Marvel Legends where it swivels back and forth. It's actually like a peg, like burrowed, like super deep into the center of his chest. And then there's like a whole, it's hard to explain without you guys being able to see it. But point being, you can pull the arms out. You just need to heat it up long enough. I would say use boiling water, but you can also use a hairdryer or like a heat gun. I used a heat gun for these just because I wanted to be able to warm up the body through the suit and not get everything soaking wet. But it didn't damage the figure, thank goodness. Mezco seems to be really heat resistant, which is wonderful. I didn't see, the parts didn't really overcook or anything. I had no issues with, plastic cooking. But I think for a much more gentler and possibly an easier removal, probably use boiling water And obviously this was my first time removing arms, so I didn't know that. So that's just sort of my tip for you guys. But coming to the arms themselves, the shoulder is from the Magneto figure, it's original. The bicep is from the Magneto figure, it's original. The elbows here are from the Tactical Batman. And it's really crazy how many parts sort of integrate in here. And then the lower arms are from Blade. And so the reason why I made that choice was, if you've seen some of my Mezco videos in the past, I've talked about paint rub with the elbow joints and how there's really no way to sand it out just by their engineering. It's very difficult to avoid paint rub. If not, I would argue impossible. Maybe I'm just not at a point in expertise where I understand how, but I've had a lot of trouble with it in the past. And so I said, to avoid that and to stick with color scheme, we're just going to replace the elbow joints. And so we went with a Tactical Batman elbow joint, and it's black, and it fits in wonderfully. And then I used the Blade arms because Magneto has his gloves, and it just didn't fit the style because we were sculpting synthetic muscle and synthetic plating. So I needed a full arm. So this is what I ended up doing instead, was replacing it with the Blade forearms here. So in terms of sculpting these arms, what I had to do was I obviously had the arms in all pieces and sanded everything down. And I'm actually going to explain where some of the sanding goes wrong with the vest. And we'll look at that in a second. But the sculpting was super intense. It was really tough to work on getting everything symmetrical. And I'll be honest, it's not 100% perfect, but I mean, it's off by millimeters. Like, you're not going to be, like, I really think that this is probably as close to eyeballing it as you can possibly get without having a machine. I spent a lot of time sharpening up this sculpt, and I think this is really the best I could have ever got it. So we have gloss black armor plating, and then we also have metallic red synthetic muscle. And I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that we actually have the fibers of the muscles picked out. And so what I did was I painted it all metallic red, and then I actually put gunmetal. I soaked gunmetal in and then wiped the surface of the red. So we kept the metallic red look, but then the gunmetal still keeps the very metallic vibe, but also allows us to appreciate all the fibers in there as well. So we have this nice metallic muscle. I'm really, really happy how it turned out. And originally I was going to do silver bolts, but I realized I actually did silver bolts on this arm first, and then I switched it to gold. Because as I had painted it with silver, I realized how industrial silver looks. Silver against black just looks really, really, for lack of a better word, machined. And I didn't want him to look super industrial. I wanted him to look really sleek and very futuristic. And so I ended up going with gold, which had a much more sort of like high-end luxury feel to it, which obviously this guy is not high-end or luxury. He's, dealing out justice in the streets. But for his color scheme and everything else we had been working with and done, the gold made a lot more sense because I didn't want him to have like this gross, oily, industrial look. I wanted him to feel a little bit, cleaner, like a well-exercised bodybuilder type dude. And so working with the gold really just helped give off that vibe a little bit more. And as we talk about that, I'm just going to replace his head with this one, so that you guys can get some, multiple views of this character. So we have that. Coming to his belt, I always talk about functionality and how do I incorporate the design and make it all make sense within the character. And so some of the functionality here was, how does he reload all his guns? This guy is, he's like Batman and Punisher mixed together with some cyborg augments. This guy's reloading a lot. He's in a lot of gunfights. How do I work out the functionality of that? And so we're going to start storing some of his weapons and explain it as we go. So first we have his very standard pistol, and his standard pistol fits right into this holster right here on his waist. And the idea with this is that if he is pulling his pistol out of the right side, it means he's holding it with his right hand. He's coming up here, pulling his pistol out, getting ready to fire, which means he's reloading with his left hand. So we have 2 pistol mags in pouches right here, so that he can pull them out from his left side and reload as he's holding his gun with his right. Likewise, we have his revolver that sits on his left side, meaning that if he's shooting his revolver, he's drawing it from his left, meaning that he needs to reload from his right. And so we added revolver rounds here. So now he can shoot with his left, pick up his bullets with his right, and load them back into the cylinder. I think that's what it's called. And then finally, he has a grenade launcher, which then means if he's holding it in his right hand, sort of playing off the hypothetical, he's holding it in his right hand, he's going to need to reload, which means we have extra grenades here on his left. So there's a lot of intentionality both in weapon placement and the stuff on his belt. It was something to think of. And then also, this vest has shotgun shells on it, which is also why we included a shotgun, so that he has ammo storage there. The other thing he has is he has knife storage for his kukuri. So, I just realized I was out of frame there. There it is. We have his knife sheath right there for his kukuri. And so it just slides in there. And it's such a short blade that honestly he could draw it with both his left or his right hand. So I didn't really bother myself with that, but because he has these extra pouches on his back, this was the only place we could put it. So it sits over his right shoulder. And the reason why I didn't want to put it on his back was there's so much other stuff here, it would just get cluttered and sort of get lost in it. And I didn't want to have him to have to reach behind his back with all this other stuff along the way. So instead, it sits up on his shoulder, and what I mean by it's a short enough blade is that if you look at swords and they're too long, because think about this, you have to be able to pull it out from across. So if I have a blade that's longer than my arm, or longer than how far I can extend my arm, I'm not going to be able to draw it. But this happens to be an extremely short blade. In comparison to his arm, it's shorter than his forearm, as you guys can see there. So it's going to be really easy to pull out from behind him. So he could cross draw it, or he could draw it with his right arm as well. So it doesn't really matter where this is placed. It's accessible to either of his hands whenever he needs it. So now, what else do we have to look at? Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, I actually have a couple things. I don't know why, I went blank right there. First of all, as with a lot of other Cyberpunk figures, not all of them, but most of them, we have Japanese kanji to stay in theme, and so this is actually the kanji for fire. And I thought that was just a perfect description for this character. He has sort of this desire to seek justice, and I think the only way to describe sort of his fight that he's pursuing is he's sort of like fiery passion. And so fire is on his belt. And then for the boots, I think we did a really great job of designing them. These are obviously Magneto's boots, and they were white before. So how do we transform it? And so we actually have 4 different shades inside these boots. We have a gloss black within the lining between these like thicker panels. And then like the thick panel itself is done in a black gray, but you can see that on the edge, there's like these slightly thinner lines running across those, and those are in matte black. So you get this really crazy, like sort of striped look with a lot of definition between them. And then obviously we've incorporated dry brushed silver into all the little tabs along his leg, as well as the armor in the front, and also the toe caps. And then to stick with the theme, we also added some red highlights into the boots right there. And so, he stays in theme. There's a very consistent color scheme throughout the whole figure. Also going back to usefulness, and something I glossed over before, is this knee pad. We had an idea to do dual knee pads, and the knee pads just ended up not really fitting his look and design. And so instead I went for a little bit more of a futuristic looking knee pad, not something so tactical, but something just a little bit, more fantastical. And along with that then, I was like, do I do 2 or do I do 1? And I ended up landing on 1, because here's why. If he's kneeling down to take his shot, and he's firing with his right hand, his right hand's on the trigger, all the force is going to be going back on his right side, which means he's going to be kneeling on his right leg to sort of brace himself. So then, if he's kneeling on his right leg, he has his right knee pad to also protect his knee. So I was thinking about a kneeling shooter stance for him, and how he would compensate for sort of that wear and tear on himself with the force of his shots, And so we have the knee pad there to work with this stance and sort of like the technique and the stuff he'd be doing. So we have all that. Now, the last thing I want to bring up is, before we switch out the coat, how this vest works. And something I've run into is some paint rub. As you can see, there's a little bit of, if it focuses, there's a little bit of paint rub right under there. And the issue with this is the Velcro. Velcro is hard and very scratchy. And so every time I put on this vest, I sort of have to measure it out so that it doesn't scratch against the arm. And as you can see, as you can see here, even before I bend the arm, because of the circular butterfly joint here, the arm already wants to push down. So I almost have to hold it up and then bend it over in order to avoid paint rub. And so it's just a very inconvenient device, and it's just something that's come to at the cost of our vest. So before I do ship this off to the customer, I will shave it down again and repaint it gloss black. But you know, for the customer, you're going to get this video early. Sort of take note that the vest does have a tendency to do that, and so just make sure you sort of strap on your straps low enough on the body so that hopefully you don't run into it as much. Hopefully, so that's just something to look out for. Now, besides having this very, very tactical vest, we also wanted to go. He needs to still walk around the city. He needs to be undercover. So I'm going to pop off this head. Gonna take off his vest here. And instead of having the Magneto white, what we actually ended up doing was dyeing the suit as well. I also painted the collar black, which I think is a nice little addition. So you can see him here without his vest in all his glory, his bulked out glory. I think he looks dope. I just love the robotic arms. It reminds me of, what's his name? Briggs. Something Briggs from Mortal Kombat. He also has just robotic arms, which I think is awesome. But his are all silver. But here, obviously, this is his unsuited, unvested look. And you can display him like this as well. He looks a little bit more like a bodybuilder here. Just have him in a fighting stance, like so. So that's a pretty cool design. But the other thing that we have here is our leather coat that we talked about earlier, our trench coat. So I'm going to have to move the figure off screen real quick, pop off his hands, and then put the coat onto him. So there's going to be a second where everything's off screen. So pardon that. But the reason why we wanted to bring the trench coat is, one, we had it left over from Gambit. And then two, we were like, well, he just can't walk around the city in a bulletproof vest with ammo all over. He's going to need, he's going to need something else, for his day-to-day life. So we have leather jacket. As you can see here, the nice part about this leather jacket, it's all wired up, which is really, really nice. And then let me just pop these hands back on. There we go, that's one. And there we go, that's two. So now he can walk around the city, look, sort of like all geared off. So obviously he's still got his, guns and whatnot there, but maybe we can just sort of take his coat and just sort of cover some of it up. And now we have more of an undercover look, or maybe even more of a detective look. Maybe this is him while he's still working at the police department, while he's on duty, and, he's coming out to a crime scene in his cool detective leather jacket, looking at whatever happened. So just some alternate designs for him. I think this coat works out really well. It has a very, very slick look to it. And I like how big it is and how wide it is. It really gives off some cool vibes with it. Definitely a very nice luxury leather jacket there. So I really like that we have this as an option. Oop, gotta stay standing. There we go. I really like having this as an option, and I think it's a really cool alternate look for something so military and so tactical. He can also sort of dress, he can dress down. Ooh, geez. He can dress down in a lot of ways. And that's just the Mezco ankle rockers. They don't have a lot of flexibility, and there's nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. Maybe I'll just lean his foot back a little bit, turn it off to the side, give him a little bit more balance. So yeah, anyways, thank you for watching this review. That is an overview of the character, both the sort of struggles and trouble with it, as long as a lot of the cool features we were able to add in. I'm really, really happy with how he turned out. I don't think we could have done any better. I think he's just a super, super unique figure and one that's really fun to look at. If you want to see more photos of this guy, because I know I didn't pose him up too much. I had a couple of his looks in there, but I didn't do everything. If you want to see him all geared up and whatnot, take a look at my Instagram page. It is Tosh_customs. And I have my username, my Instagram username, both in the description of this video, as well as a link in the About section of my channel. So you can find me there. I do a lot more almost close to daily updates. So you'll be able to see the stuff I'm working on, and you'll be able to get an early peek at all my work in progress stuff. That's also the easiest way to communicate with me if you have questions or you want more advice about how to make a figure, stuff like that. I'm always happy to help people, just in general. I love doing it. I love talking with y'all. So that's the place to get in contact with me also. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it to be informational or educational or just fun to watch. And if so, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any support you can give. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.